welcome everybody to Spin Legal. It is Tuesday night, 6 o'clock-ish. Therefore, it's Spin Legal. We never promised anybody we would be bang on 6 o'clock, did we? We just said about 6 o'clock. So There we go. Okay, and here's a good question for you tonight. So it's episode 108, and with Angela and myself, and this was put up by Alicia. And how do I know if the pet I want is legal in my area? That's interesting because it's like, hey, I'm going to have a cheetah, okay?
And I have a pet gorilla.
Yeah, and I'm going to just treat her like a dog, my cheetah. Yeah. Fetch.
Or a pet lion.
Yeah.
Yeah, love to have a pet lion because that mane must be really nice.
But the trouble is the jaw can open up to bigger than your head.
Yeah, probably eat my whole body.
Yeah. Okay, so just let's get this out of the way. If you need to contact Invictus Legal, you can do so on 905-688-5598 or email Angela with angela@weareinvictus.legal or myself using peter@weareinvictus.legal. The website is weareinvictus.legal. There you go. Okay, so the question here is, how do I know if the pet I want is legal in my area? Now, dare I say that, hey, I should do, here we go. Phone call to my son. Hey, son, is a lions legal in Mombasa? There you go. The answer is no. So even though lions exist in the wild in Kenya, you're not going to have them in Mombasa or Nairobi. Not going to have.
Not as a pet.
I don't want them as a pet. No. Right. There's a lot to consider about that, and obviously, people know about pets and want pets, and we know mostly. Hey, there's a guy I know who's got about 6 cats.
Mm-hmm.
Very
fine. More myself.
Yeah, yeah. He's got a couple of Maine Coons, a serval, and some others.
Did you meet those cats, or?
I've only met one of them once.
Yeah. He's got 6.
Yeah, he's got 6. He was telling me about.
Oh.
Yeah, but anyway, you know.
Yeah.
So
because I used to have 6, and then I lost. Then 2 of them crossed the Rainbow Bridge.
Well, I used to have 2 cats and do not have any right now. So there we go.
Crossed the Rainbow Bridge.
So here's a question. About legality of anything. Actually, if you're going to actually ask the question about whether anything is legal, you're going to say, well, the first place you're going to look to see whether anything is legal anywhere in Canada is what do your provincial or federal laws say about it?
Yeah, as well as municipal laws, municipal bylaws.
Yeah. The first place to look is going to be provincial or federal laws.
Because they might allow you one small hippopotamus.
Pardon me?
One small hippopotamus has to be not above a certain height. A certain weight.
Yeah, the trouble is, you see, it's true that you can have a hippopotamus. They're nice animals when they're in the water, right? But you see, if you go down to the edge of a bank of water, I can guarantee you the hippo can reach the top of the bank quicker than you can from the middle of the river.
Yeah.
Right. So they're not a pet. They're not a pet.
It's
right?
Almost like our co-op. When we lived in a co-op, they were always arguing about the pet bylaw, that they did not allow dogs or cats for a while. Yeah. And it became a subject of political controversy. Well, we kept opening that can of worms about every year or so. We opened up the can of worms about allowing pets. So they would allow one small dog. And the definition of small was in terms of height. Then I said, what happens if it's 2 inches higher than what's allowed?
You buy it as a puppy, and the allowed height is 0.5 meter, and the puppy's under 0.5 meter when you buy it, but it's over 0.5 meter when it becomes an adult. Yeah.
exactly. So there's a lot of things that
Yeah.
they have to watch that in terms of these
Well,
things.
but let's go to some of these sort of things. Now, it's important to understand this, that if you're looking at federal laws and provincial laws, they primarily stop you from owning things like pit bulls, wild animals, and species at risk. So owning indigenous species that are on the endangered list is prohibited, and in fact you can carry quite a serious sentence.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I wouldn't know what's on that particular list. Wild animals, it's illegal to keep native Ontario wild animals like raccoons and deers as pets.
Yeah. Like those white-tailed deers are so sweet.
Well, some deers are actually on the endangered species list.
I know. You wouldn't want that.
Yeah. The other one, which is the source of great concern amongst certain people, is pit bulls. So in Ontario, it's illegal to own, breed, or import pit bulls, including pit bull terriers, Staffordshire bull terriers, American Staffordshire terriers, and American pit bull terriers. And there are many pit bull owners, and a few that I know of personally, who would say that they are a maligned species, and in fact, most pit bulls only share the characteristics of their own, of their own masters.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then what they do is they call it something else, that it's a mix of something else, like a Cane Corso, for example. A Cane Corso mix, I'm registering my Cane Corso mix with the city.
Yeah.
You're not saying that it's a pit bull or it has any pit bull in it.
Yeah.
Right? So, I mean, this is what happens. And you're not going to stop people from bringing pit bulls in.
Yeah.
Okay? You might want to regulate how that pit bull or any dog acts, but you don't want to say, don't bring in a pit bull.
Yeah. One of the things that has to be said is that whilst condos and co-ops can set their own rules in relation to pets, a landlord cannot. A landlord cannot,
under the residential
stop
tenancy,
you from having a pet.
Yeah. And the pets have to be legal in accordance to your municipality. For example, I want to get a boa constrictor snake. Okay.
Oh.
Your municipal bylaws might prohibit that. They might prohibit people from owning snakes, especially big snakes.
Well, go on to municipal ones while you're talking about them. So check municipal bylaws, and essentially there is pretty well every municipality, and I've just used this one for example, animal control bylaw for your city. Hamilton has one called responsible animal ownership bylaw. That sounds a mouthful, doesn't it?
Yeah. There's also irresponsible animal ownership.
Well, it basically maintains that all dogs and Vietnamese pot-bellied pigs must be licensed, with fines for violators between $180 and $10,000. So this is the animal control bylaw for Hamilton. Vietnamese pot-bellied pigs.
Yeah.
I understand they are very intelligent creatures.
Yeah. Some people have them, and I know a couple people who own them.
Yeah. Now, with these, of course, what you've got about animal control bylaws is it comes along with licensing, which of course brings its own fees, leash bylaws and poop bylaws, and actually the Residential Tenancy Act even has sections about ownership and dog poop and things like that.
Yeah, but you can't just go in there. Like, actually, they had some condo bylaws where they allowed dogs, and what they did is as soon as you bring in a dog, they actually take DNA samples from each of your dogs, because if they detect anything that's out there in poop, they're going to test that. They're going to find out which dog did it.
Doggy doodah, right?
Yeah, doggy
doodah detector.
Yeah, a dog doodah. Yeah.
Okay.
So, I mean,
the next one.
I didn't know they did this. So I thought, I was joking around about it one time. And then I found out that somebody was actually doing that.
Yeah. The next one that is that's interesting about this is that animals at large, including dogs and cats, are not permitted to roam freely off their owner's property. Try telling that to a cat.
Yeah, tell that to my cat, because I remember I had a cat named
Mystic,
Princess. She used to run off the property all the time and come home and bring me babies.
yeah, well, Mystic was, he'd say, you know, even on a snowy day, let me out, let me out, let me out. Right, and by the door, and you let him out. And if it's a nice, funny, sunny, fine day like it is today, you probably wouldn't see him for 6 hours.
Yeah.
Right, because the first thing he'd do is through the fence and off into the blue yonder.
I also, yeah, that's the same thing as my Princess used to be. She was, she's since passed away, but she was one of my cats, and she would run out the door, and then we couldn't find her. And it might be a couple days, and then she'd return home, and suddenly she was just lying curled up on one of our chairs on the front porch. She did nothing wrong. And then about a few weeks later, suddenly she had a baby kittens.
Yeah. Well, Mystic was one of these cats who basically he'd go out. It's like the only time he wouldn't go out and explore the world is like it is, well, when he got older, but actually when he was younger, it's like it's snowing outside. He'd go outside and he'd go, oh, I don't like this stuff. And he'd be back within 5 minutes. And like, look at you as if to say, what did you do to put the snow out there? I don't like that stuff. Very concerned look on his face, right?
Blaming the cat for all that snow?
No, he'd blame us for all that snow.
Oh, I see. So the cat would blame you. Oh my God. That cat.
Okay. Feeding of wildlife is prohibited, and that should be important. Right? Yeah. In Hamilton, feeding of wildlife is prohibited. And
that's what attracts the coyotes into the community. If people keep feeding coyotes and raccoons and different animals, that's what attracts them. And then they get bigger and bigger animals coming by. What are you doing, Peter?
I'm disappearing in the sun. There we go.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay.
The sun coming across in my face. I'd forgotten that about this time of year. Okay. So the animal control bylaws, basically, in Hamilton, they're saying they operate a zero tolerance policy for unlicensed dogs. Animal services can be contacted at 905-574-3433, you see. So if you see an unlicensed dog roaming around, that's the number to call. But most cities will have some form of dog enforcement policy.
Yeah. And the thing is, they tried to license cats in St. Catharines. That was an adventure. I went in and I just gave them a real good comedic speech at City Hall about the licensing of cats and about how they're going to enforce it. Hire an army of people going door to door and going into people's houses and doing head counts and all this stuff and taking DNA samples and everything off each of the cats. And I said, how much do you want your property taxes to go up to enforce that? You know.
Well, at the end of the day, when you think about this for a moment, one of the questions about cats is that cats, generally speaking, keep to themselves. They cover up their litter. They, you know, they'll dig into the thing and cover it up to make sure that their poop is actually hidden. So they're not quite like dogs, where dogs are largely dependent upon humans to actually bury that stuff. Yeah.
Or pick it up, poop and scoop. Yeah.
Yeah, scoopy scoop and take it away. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you see, for example, if I let my cat out and my cat could only go in my garden, my cat will find an area to scoop up and poop in. If I let the dog out and into my garden and they could only go in my garden, the dog wouldn't do any of that kind of stuff. They just
or the cat goes next door to somebody else's garden. That's when people get really, that's what they were trying to license cats for.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, how are we going to control that?
Yeah. That's a ridiculous thing.
I simply don't let my cats out. Right?
Yeah.
Too many
there's a lot of people that don't let cats out, and I think it's a changing kind of concept with cats these days, because we were at one point in a situation whereby, I suppose, in the 60s and 70s, if you didn't let your cat out, you were probably called cruel. Whereas today, you'd be considered cruel by letting your cat out.
Yeah, because that's what happened to the people across the street. They kept letting this cat out all the time and didn't even feed him. And then he kept going by our place to get fed, and he always got food. And
Yeah.
what do you expect this cat to do? Eat mice or something out there? Like, I don't know. There's not a lot of mice wandering around.
Yeah. Well, one of the kind of questions about, for example, mandatory licensing, dogs are required to be licensed. There can be limits on numbers for dogs. For example, the city of Fort Erie has a limit of 3 dogs per household. Now, that's a weird thing when you consider that it's the same for whether it's a house in the city in downtown Fort Erie or is out in a farm in Stevensville.
Yeah, which is kind of weird. I think they need to assess that for the kind of property it is and what type of support that the owner is providing for the dogs.
Yeah. And for example, in the St. Catharines area, dogs, there's a maximum of 3 allowed in any household. Cats, there's a maximum of 8 allowed in any household. And I would imagine the figures are pretty much the same for most areas.
Yeah. And the thing is, you can have all the maximum number of cats in your household, 8, and they're all loved equally.
No. I assure you that Snuggles will snuggle up somehow.
Yeah.
This is my lap. Get away from here.
It's like Mimi. She'll just curl up beside me.
And what'll happen is, you see, what Mystic would have been like when he was younger is he would have been the one for kind of, if there was another cat sat on your lap, he'd dive under that other cat. That's what he would be like.
Yeah. And then sometimes I'll sit down and then there's a blanket kind of hanging over. And then I go in there, I see a lump in there. And I just move my leg a little bit. And then you find out that it's a cat and it just runs right out.
Yeah.
Crazy cats. They just like to run all over the place, chasing each other around the house.
Okay, so one of the things is, I know I made a bit of a blasé statement earlier on about you can't stop pets, ownership of pets for renters. And generally you can't, but there are different rules for condos than there are for condos and co-ops than there are for normal rental properties. And if you rent, for example, if you rent in a condo, the rules of the condo apply even though you're renting.
Yeah. Yep. Even if you're a renter, a tenant of an owner in a co-op, you still have to follow the rules of the condo. I mean, renting in a condo. Yeah. You still have to follow the rules, whatever the condo bylaws say.
Yeah. And whereas in general speaking, if you're just renting an apartment in downtown Hamilton, they can't stop you. They can't say no pets and no children.
Yeah, they can say you can have a small giraffe or something, that you can bring.
Have you seen a small giraffe?
No.
I mean, its head is higher than my office.
Yeah. Yeah, we used to joke around about that when we were making fun of the pet bylaws at the co-op I used to live in. Yeah. So we used to assign people as pet bylaw enforcement officers. You go door to door and check what they got.
I've seen a small elephant. It's the size of a mini.
Oh my God. Those small elephants, yeah, you can have that as pet, but the trouble is they become big elephants.
The trouble is, of course, if I have a small elephant as a pet, it becomes a large elephant in 3 or 4 years, and it wants to eat all the grass in my neighborhood every single day of the year.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I mean, it's going to eat my garden, my next door neighbor's garden, every garden in a half-mile radius, and it's going to do that every single day of the year.
Yeah, then you'll get a visit by the bylaw officer and asking you why you have an elephant.
Yeah, not surprising, of course. And when you think about it, those are the reasons, exactly the reasons why you have animal bylaw officers anyway.
Mhm.
And one of the questions, of course, about anything like this is, what do you do if you have a complaint? Most municipalities have an animal, have an animal bylaw related complaint procedure.
Yeah, sometimes
So,
you
for
just call the
example,
Humane Society or SPCA, or you call your bylaw department at City
yeah,
Hall.
yeah, exactly. So if you've got, for example, you've got a number to call in most places if you look up the bylaw office, and you've got a number of options available to do that.
Yeah, like for
And
example, if you got a neighbor that seems to have about 45 to 50 dogs and they're barking all the time, yeah, you need to call somebody to have them
yeah,
come down, do a head count, and have them somehow remove or bring the number of dogs down to a certain number. And there needs to be some process to do it without harming the animals.
yeah. And basically what it says, if we're going back to the whole of Canada, legal pets in Canada include common domestic animals like dogs, cats, birds, but check legality for exotic pets very significantly by province and municipality. Many wild animals like bears, big cats, primates, venomous reptiles are banned, while some less common exotics like sugar gliders, capybaras, bearded dragons, and certain snakes may be allowed if they meet welfare and safety and local bylaws, requiring owners to check federal, provincial, and city regulations before you even consider buying it.
I just thought about my pet cobra. Okay?
Well, you see, the good thing about a pet cobra is it comes as a nice tie, doesn't it?
Yeah,
And the thing is,
somebody
somebody then says something against me, and like what it does is it raises its head. What do you mean talking bad about Mr. Giblett?
and they're quick and discourages burglars too. You just had somebody in your house who's not supposed to be there. The last thing they expect is to have a cobra or something like that.
Yeah. Have you ever touched a snake?
Yep. Yep. Somebody had a python.
Yeah.
Okay, or boa constrictor, and then it's actually they don't harm you. Okay.
Yeah.
So I was just holding him and he was just crawling all over and running around like that. Hey, just kind of circling around. Hey. It's so cute.
But the funny thing is about it is it's a very dry touch, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And some people like them. That's those are legal to have, as long as they meet the safety and the regulatory types of things, like in terms of size and breed. Okay, so they can have that. So we had this before when we had they had this festival down here in St. Catharines, and it gave everybody a chance to see things like snakes, wild snakes, and different things like that, lizards, and see how they interact.
Well, that used to be one of the goals about zoos, right?
Mm-hmm.
Zoos used to be that you would have kind of like you'd have a couple of things: a petting zoo, where you could actually have animals that could be touched, like sheep, like goats, and animals that might well be more familiar to most people. You could also have endangered species type areas where you could go and see what a snake looks like, what other animals look
Mm-hmm.
like. I've also been to some places whereby there's been aquariums for animals that you might not see otherwise.
Yeah.
And they're interesting.
People try to say, well, let's just set up marine parks and all these other things. And I said, well, this was an argument for marine land originally, but you have to treat these animals properly. You don't use them for entertainment.
But of course, the other thing about things like marine land is we've changed our attitude on animals, haven't we? And we no longer have animals for display.
Yeah, because now what we want to have is more sanctuaries. So if you have an endangered species, you'd want to have sanctuaries where they can kind of live out their lives and peaceful, like live out close to natural as possible.
Yeah, and in cities and larger towns like Hamilton, like St. Catharines, you would of course have licensing requirements for dogs. Typically, dogs doesn't make any sense to have licensing of cats.
Yeah, even though they tried in St. Catharines, but I guess we were just we all came up and because I was asked to go to it. To speak on it because I just thought it was kind of a dumb idea, and I spoke on it. So I usually give my jocular presentation about what I thought would be the result of trying to license cats and the fact that people don't want their property taxes to go way up, but investing in an army to go door to door.
If we're honest about it, we no longer have what you'd term as the dog catcher, do we?
No.
It's not a job in society anymore.
Yeah, they don't elect dog catchers, nor do they hire them. What happens is we have usually the SPCA or the Humane Society.
But that said,
if someone complains about a dog loose or something, they will go around and catch the dog, see if it's tagged, try to find the owner, that sort of thing. Okay. And the thing is now we're moving towards a society where we don't want to have animals suffer.
Yeah. Well, there's a couple of areas by that, and we were talking about this earlier on. Okay, so licensing in Hamilton is dogs have a current valid license, and basically $29 for an altered dog and puppies, and $65 for an unaltered dog. I don't know what that means.
Altered, that means neutered or spayed. I used to go around about how you can.
Sorry, I'm being dumb there.
Something is that altered enough,
Yeah. Fines for an unlicensed dog start at $180 and can go up to $10,000.
Yeah.
Right. So that's pretty crucial. So the cost for licensing a dog, $29, is relatively low.
Yeah, relatively nominal compared to if you don't license them and then you get caught.
Yeah.
Particularly if you have a lot of dogs, or if you're penning them up improperly or treating them improperly, and you get a complaint, and then they come down and see, what's going on. Then you can get there's different things that can handle. They can actually take the animals into custody, and then you have to go. You have to go to the Animal Care Review Board. There's a lot of stuff that could happen.
And for example, if you've got dogs roaming around, you should contact Animal Services. And I guess actually that if you've got other animals wandering around aimlessly, for example, if you found a bear inside the town, if I looked up and found a bear right out here, I should be ringing Animal Services. Actually,
wildlife. There's natural wildlife and natural resources. Up north, they used to have an office of M&R, and Mines of Natural Resources. They used to have people go in and throw a tranquilizer dart at the bear. The bear is not injured or hurt in any way, just put to sleep or tired, so that they go over there. Then they bring the bear into one of those cages.
Yeah.
Then they take them out back to the wild and they re-release them into the wild.
Yeah. The other thing about this is limits on numbers. You can be fined if you have dogs over the limit of over the number limit. Ironically, of course, it does mean that you're likely to have two fines, one for an unlicensed dog and the second for over the limit.
Yeah, exactly. And you have to have a reason. There are some exemptions to anything, like if you're a certified breeder or if you're kind of an animal rescue organization, there's different reasons why you might be able to qualify for an exemption.
Yeah.
But if you're just a dog owner, hey, you have to be applied to under the bylaws.
Yeah. All right. Any other thoughts about cats, dogs, other animals?
Yeah, and I think people have to start realizing before they adopt an animal that they have to look at this as being responsible. It's a lifetime of the animal that you're responsible for. And also learn about the animal's breed.
Yeah.
Like dogs have different breeds.
Yeah.
They have different personalities, different characteristics. And you want to bring one into your home, you want to make sure that you bring one that would match the needs and capacities of your family.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to bring a rambunctious.
I'm going to bring a little sausage dog, and I'm going to get myself a little sausage dog about 6 to 9 inches long, right? It's going to be going with me everywhere I go, right? So it's going to be in the office half the day, at home half the day, and it'll be walkies before we go home. How about that?
Yeah, that's some people do that, right? And then there's and also too when people have it like my father-in-law, he's 85 years old now. He has a very rambunctious dog, and so he only has the energy to let her go back in the yard to do her business and have her come back in.
Yeah,
but it's my sister-in-law and her kids that sometimes take the dog out for walks, but he's unable to do as many walks as he used to.
Yeah. Well, one of the questions. So those are obviously things you have to think about. But again, our Queen Elizabeth II, she reached a certain point when she was in her 80s, whereby she started to lose some of her dogs, and she said, "I'm not having any more dogs."
Yeah, she had the corgis.
Yeah. So she made a decision that she was of a certain age, whereby she didn't want to outlive her dogs.
Yeah, that's what a lot of people think. And this is another thing. Or if you are older and you still want a pet, make sure you have plans for your pet.
Yeah.
After you go, so that somebody will be willing to care for the animal. Just don't do things. Or even if you move or something, don't leave them in your house and leave them behind after you move.
Or leave them behind. Don't leave them behind after you move, because now it's like your cat, realistically, despite the films to the contrary, your cat isn't going to find you in Vancouver, BC.
Yeah, they're not going to hop a plane and go find you in Vancouver.
Yeah. Or spend a year and a half running across the country. They're not going to do that.
They're not. And right. I think people have to be really careful because animals are sentient beings. And I said, you take a new responsibility for an animal, you take a responsibility for the whole of that animal's life.
Yeah.
Even if you're someone who still wants an animal when you're older, you want to make sure that there's somebody in your family or among your friendship group that's willing to care for the animal after you leave.
And here's a question that's an important question. So what happens under Angela's rule of law if anybody harms an animal?
Oh, that's capital punishment for sure.
And if they harm a human being?
Slap on the wrist.
There we go.
Relatively speaking. Yeah. We were talking, I think it was a bunch of neighbors and we were all talking about, we were hearing stories about how people were doing certain things or neglecting animals.
Yeah.
And people were saying, well, we should put that guy in a cage 24 hours a day and see how he likes it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is really true, you know.
But again, as we were talking about animals and law relating to animals, don't defame people because you don't know the truth about what's going on in any animal situation. Right?
Yeah, exactly. You don't know. And the thing is, animals are, I've had friends of mine too. I had a guy, he had a small dog. He carried the dog around with, I forget, it's a kind of a Shih Tzu type of dog. He carried it around. And we went to different meetings, and we had meetings in restaurants and everything else, but he still carried his dog around. And I said, "Is that dog a service dog?" He said, "No." I just take him everywhere.
Yeah.
Nobody noticed. Nobody ever asked him questions. I just was really weird.
All right. So if you need legal advice, you can call Invictus Legal on 905-688-5598. Email Angela at angela@weareinvictus.legal, or myself using Peter at weareinvictus.legal. Visit our website, weareinvictus.legal, and we do animal law.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah,
We handle
have
dogs, cats.
Yeah, we've got clients who are dogs, we've got clients who are cats, and we've even had clients who are horses.
Yeah, exactly. And it's very interesting when you look at it, because they're all governed by legislation.
Yep. All right. And before we sign off.
Yep. So if you heard anything today on Spin Legal, whether it's in this show or any of the others, this is not legal advice. If you need specific legal advice, so please contact a paralegal or a lawyer. Of course, we would like you to come to Invictus Legal and talk to us. But however, it's very important that you do not go on the internet or even use ChatGPT or any kind of AI forum, to ask questions about the law, because them, like human beings, make mistakes. It's better to talk to a professional. Sometimes people come in, and I've had people visit us and say, "Oh, I was on ChatGPT, and this is the kinds of questions I have." I just said, "Tell me about your situation first, then tell me your questions."
Yeah. All right. So, yep. Thank you, everybody. And we'll see you next week.
Yep. Okay. So long.